Economic boom or environmental bust? That is the question, and we explore it next on NewsNite. This is NewsNite for the last day of November 2012. I'm Jody Miller, and I want to thank you for joining us. Tonight's program is going to be focused on an issue of statewide importance, both environmentally and economically. If I say fracking, you'll know exactly what we're going to be talking about. But it's a story that's much larger than just fracking. It's about the ramifications that run the gamut from economic boom to environmental bust. Joining me to talk about this story and help make sense of this story, we have two very experienced and well-rounded journalists. I want to introduce Bob Downing, who is the environmental, parks, and outdoor reporter for the Beacon Journal, and he has been so for 40 years now, Bob.
Long time, yes.
Long time. And Tim Rudell, whose career in journalism has spanned almost every aspect of our field. Tim is a staff reporter with WKSU. Tim, welcome.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, big story.
It is.
I want to start with some of the basics here, and the basics have to be the geology behind this whole boom. So can you explain to our viewers some of what the Marcellus Shale is, what the Utica Shale is, and why all of a sudden it's important?
So starting point maybe, about 4 or 5 years ago, Pennsylvania became a hotspot for drilling in the Marcellus Shale. And it's a black shale. In Pennsylvania, 8,000 to 9,000 feet deep. In Ohio, it's a little bit shallower. And drilling in Pennsylvania progressed very nicely, and they were using kind of a newer technology for the industry. It was basically, you basically drill a vertical well and then kind of bend it and run it horizontally. And then you would use hydraulic fracturing or frack the well. And you would use water, sand, and toxic chemicals to free up the natural gas, the oils, the natural gas liquids, whatever you might find in there, and bring them to the surface. So it's kind of a new process about 10 years ago in Texas. And it came to Pennsylvania with the Marcellus, and about that time they were looking at drilling in New York. And New York basically said, no, we want to put a moratorium on this and look at this whole issue a little bit more. In fact, New York still has a moratorium in place. And then they started looking at Ohio. And the Marcellus Shale in Ohio there is not much of it, and it's very thin. It's maybe 20 feet thick in eastern Ohio, where it's several hundred feet thick in Pennsylvania. So the drillers were really not that interested in the Marcellus Shale in Ohio. Maybe a dozen wells were permitted, maybe 6 have been drilled. And they are very lucrative, but they're mostly natural gas wells. But the Marcellus was not a big deal in Ohio. But the drillers realized there's a deeper shale called the Utica. And the Utica covers the eastern half of Ohio. And the Utica was very attractive to them. So instead of going 5,000 to 6,000 feet for the Marcellus, they started looking at going 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 feet to the Utica shale. It's a black shale. It's very hard. I mean, it's not a crumbly kind of shale like you might picture in metro parks around here or anything. But it's a very hard shale. I've seen chunks of it. Mm-hmm. And it's a very black rock, and the black is hydrocarbons, which are very lucrative.
And because the hydrocarbons provide natural gas, they provide oil, they provide what is called the wet gases.
The wet gases, yes.
Which are like propane?
Well, ethane, propane, and butane are called the wet gases. And basically, what they have found is a window in eastern Ohio that is very lucrative because it's actually providing 1/3 natural gas, 1/3 oil, 1/3 the wet gases. And as the price of natural gas has dropped in the last couple of years, the drilling companies are less interested in pure natural gas, like they find in Pennsylvania with the Marcellus Shale. But they are very interested in the wet gas window because basically they can make more money.
Okay.
So the economics are driving it right now, and drilling in Pennsylvania is being cut back, drilling in Texas is being cut back, drilling in Ohio is growing. And it's mostly in this wet gas window, which is this band that's maybe 30 to 40 miles wide, stretching from Mahoning, Columbiana, Carroll, Belmont, Harrison, Guernsey, Noble counties in eastern Ohio. In fact, right now, Carroll County is probably the epicenter for the drilling activity.
And the way to get the gases out of the shale is hydraulic fracturing, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's as he said, it's this particular shale is really hard, and so there's an immense amount of hydrocarbon material in it, but it's just locked in it. And the only way to get it out, it's kind of like even if there were little pockets inside this glass table, the only way to get them out is you got to break the glass. And the fracturing process actually cracks the fabric of the rock, and that's what lets the gas and the liquids in some case seep out. Otherwise, it's just going to stay there. It isn't that geologists didn't know for probably half a century that these kinds of shales had a great amount of energy in them. There just was no practical way to get
them.
Yeah.
And the way they get them is obviously they drill a horizontal well, and then they go, or a vertical well, and then they go horizontally through the layers of the shale. And the welling includes a lot of water, or the drilling includes a lot of water, correct? And chemicals.
Well, the industry will say basically what the fracking material is basically probably 99% water and sand.
Okay.
And the idea is the water, it will be under pressure and will go through the cracks and crack the rock even more. The sand will basically keep the cracks open.
To allow the gas to then
allow the
seep
gas
out.
to escape. And then there's also toxic chemicals which are put into the well for things to keep like mold from growing. And they're all for a very specific reason. And the industry says it's a very small amount. If you actually look at a typical well, you're looking at several hundred tons of chemicals going into each well.
But that's small in relationship to the amount of water,
it's small
let's say,
in relation
or sand.
to the water and sand, yes.
Each well, how much land does each of these kinds of wells take up versus the old type of just vertical drilling?
Well, basically, most of the wells these days you need at least 160 acres to drill a vertical well to certain depths. But most of the companies have locked up large tracts of land. I mean, they don't want a competitor to drill a well next to their well.
Okay.
So instead of the 160 well, I mean, Chesapeake Energy has like 1.3 million acres they have leased in eastern Ohio. The estimate from about 20 companies is probably 3 million acres have been leased in eastern Ohio. So there is a lot of land out there available for drilling. So the 160 acres is a kind of an unimportant number right now.
But with that kind of acreage, are we looking at just acres and acres of land that are going to be dotted with well things, oil wells?
Maybe not as much as with conventional wells. With conventional drill a single hole down, and those wells work because they go into pockets of gas and so forth that is in rock that's not so hard, and the gas will come out. Those you could conceivably have them every 100 feet. But this kind of well is a much bigger industrial kind of thing. And they'll have one well bore, and they may have several wells that are actually going through the same apparatus.
In other words, they would go down and then they go off like spokes in a wheel?
If you could somehow look through the ground, you'd see
Actually, each well has its own separate vertical and horizontal. It's not one central bore thing. But you make it as many as 20 wells from one 5-acre pad up on top. And the well will go down and maybe go one way. A second well will go down and go off the other way.
So kind of the trade-off from a...
So there's less surface impact, if you will.
Okay. And I want you to know that we're going to continue this portion of our discussion on NewsNite.net.
For more NewsNite content, including extended discussions, full interviews, and the chance to speak your mind about the issues, join us online at NewsNite.net.
We are back to continue our discussion about fracking in the state of Ohio. And one of the aspects that I would like to cover and have you both talk about a little bit is the fact that in Ohio, there is no local control over well drillers coming into small communities. How did that happen, and why did it happen?
Well, I guess the how was, and I don't remember the date because I was actually not working in this area at the time. But I think it was around 2004. The state legislature commandeered all of the authority to regulate these sorts of things. They passed, and I've forgotten the name of it now, but they passed a bill that required that any regulation of this kind of activity had to be done by the state, by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and to some extent more limited by the state EPA, and that there was no local control whatsoever. And why they did it, I assume, I don't know this, I'm just guessing, you may know. My guess was they did it because the really just a random sort of control that would be possible from local levels might literally prevent the development of this kind of an energy source. You could have crazy local regulations that would be impossible to meet. You also could have local regulations that were ineffective, that didn't protect well enough. And so I think that's why the state did it. But I wasn't here for the politics of that, so I don't know.
I think the main reason I can recall is basically the drillers at that time, 2003, 2004, were interested in coming into more urban areas.
Okay.
And these are not the kind of fracking wells that they're doing now, but the old wells, which are your basic vertical well, and you would frack it.
Okay.
But the point is, they were interested more in getting into suburban areas, in Northeast Ohio and elsewhere, and they knew they would run into opposition. And one of the best ways to eliminate the opposition is to take the locals out of the picture totally. Total control to the state.
I know that several months ago, because of what has happened here, Governor Kasich signed a new energy bill. And part of that energy bill, he said that it includes the most aggressive, clearest, fairest, and strongest fracking standards anywhere. So I need to ask you, is this true?
I think probably it is, in the sense of, if you're talking about numbers of regulations and what they seek to regulate. Maybe it is true. I don't know. I mean, I haven't read the regulations of every state. That's a relative thing, of course. Even if it were true, are those things, are all of those virtues that he listed actually at the highest level, even if they may be at the highest level relative to everybody else? I think that, they actually did try to put in a comprehensive thing, but it had a dual purpose. It was to not only create protections and so forth, it was also to foster the industry, to make this possible to happen, which is not an unreasonable thing to do. I mean, they want to try to. This could clearly be a huge economic boon to the state. They wanted to make sure this industry could flourish. So they had, like I say, two purposes for doing it. Is it a fairly elaborate system? Yeah, it is. Did the governor gild the lily a little there? Probably.
but in the same sense, it's still. The regulations and the enforcement of the regulations relies on the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and their staff. Are they up to this task, Bob?
They insist they are, and to this point, we have not seen any evidence that they're not. To this point, in the year and a half of drilling, Ohio has not had the kind of problems that Pennsylvania has had in the past. I mean, Pennsylvania has had anecdotal type things of people getting sick, animals dying from probably air exposures. There have been leaks into surface water and groundwater from the chemical handling. And Ohio has had virtually no problems to this point, knock on wood. But Ohio has said all along, we think our laws are among the toughest in the country. And at this point, I have to take them on face word the fact that we have not had problems.
But what about the local communities? I mean, there are a number of small communities in some of the counties that you mentioned earlier that have virtually no control over this, and I think there's an awful lot of fuss about, wait a minute, we don't want these trucks on our roads, we don't want these people bringing these chemicals into our communities. They have absolutely no recourse, correct?
Well, that is a little bit up for debate. There are a few communities which are trying to get local control back. Okay. The city of Mansfield, for example, the city of Broadview Heights, have passed charter amendments, which basically says, we are taking local control back. I mean, the issue is, what will the state of Ohio do on this? And nobody knows. There is Yellow Springs passed resolution through their village council, or basically, banning fracking in their community. I mean, is it a symbolic gesture, or can these grassroots groups, pull something off?
Will the courts have to decide?
The courts will probably have to decide. At some point, I think a driller may well challenge those kind of local rules which are starting to pop up. But I mean, until the court rules and the state challenges it, it's kind of up in the air. But I don't think. I think it's more of a symbolic move, maybe, to show that people are unhappy about this. But I mean, is the state legislature likely to change this local control issue right now? No.
Yeah, I mean, they're clearly trying to just. The quickest route to get that change is to get the state legislature to change it. So they're trying to create enough pressure, make enough fuss to get legislators in Columbus to do that. In the process, though, they are raising a potentially viable challenge. I mean, I don't know I'm not an attorney, so I can't say for sure it would work. But basically, there are two big pieces of the Ohio Constitution that they are causing to collide with each other. One of them is the ability of the state legislature to command all these sorts of things, because essentially all power in the state comes from the legislature, even the local legislative power. But there also is home rule. And so they're really kind of throwing one constitutional concept up against the other. I have no idea where that goes, but yeah, the court's probably where it will get sorted out.
One of the other aspects that has been in the news recently has to do with the briny wastewater material that comes out of the wells and how to dispose of that. Just recently, the ability to dispose of it in injection wells has come back to play, because there had been a moratorium on that, correct?
Yes.
So describe the difference between an injection well and the regular well in terms of what is being fracked.
Okay. Injection wells have been around for a long time, and they basically take the salty brine and pump it under pressure into underground rock formations, and they may be anywhere 2,000 to 10 to 15,000 feet deep. And in many cases, there are cavities below ground where natural gas or oil may have come from years ago.
Okay, that are empty.
That are empty.
Okay.
And basically you pump them in under pressure and it fills up this void, and basically it is judged or has been deemed to be a safe disposal method for the state of Ohio, because basically it's not going to pollute groundwater, which is up in the top 300 feet generally.
Okay.
And it's not going to leak out and cause problems for anybody. And Ohio basically said all waste produced in Ohio must go into injection wells. What you've also found, though, is injection wells in Ohio are also taking waste from Pennsylvania.
Right.
Because Pennsylvania has very few injection wells. Ohio has like 177 that are operating, another 20 that are permitted, and another 30 applications which are pending. So Ohio's looking at probably 210, 215 injection wells. And Pennsylvania has 8, and New York has under 10.
Wow.
And so half of the waste coming into Ohio right now, into Ohio's injection wells, is from Pennsylvania and West Virginia.
And part of the reason for that is our geology is different.
Than those two other states.
Yes.
One of the reasons you don't have injection wells in such numbers in Pennsylvania and New York is that what's under there is much more problematic. There are fissures and all sorts of cracks and organized faults that aren't under us. So,
except in Youngstown, where didn't they think injection wells may have caused an earthquake?
Oh, they absolutely did. But that was
actually 13 earthquakes.
But that was because
okay.
that was because of an error in the choice of where to drill the well. It didn't hit a fault.
Okay.
Basically, they drilled into granite, and if you spill your coffee on the granite countertop, what happens? It splatters.
It just splatters.
And they bored into granite. And by the way, no, Youngstown did not have earthquakes. I was the news director of one of the TV stations there for years. They don't have earthquakes in Youngstown, and they haven't had any since they shut that well down. It was an error, and there as noted, there were 177 wells operating in Ohio. That's the only one that ever did that, and it was because they made a mistake in where they drilled it.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to continue a little bit more of this discussion on injection wells on NewsNite.net.
For more NewsNite content, including extended discussions, full interviews, and the chance to speak your mind about the issues, join us online at NewsNite.net.
We are back to continue our discussion about fracking in the state of Ohio. And I want to ask both of my panelists here about the economic realities of what this boom means. So, Tim, you were talking about you think it's going to happen regardless.
Yeah, I mean, there are, as a practical matter, almost regardless of how much pushback there is from people with environmental concerns and so forth, and no matter how valid their concerns may be, there is so much money involved, and I don't mean money like just in the sense of making some individuals rich. I'm talking about money in terms of flow into the economy that makes the economy robust and move. There is such an immense amount of if you will, economic energy in this that it's just not going to stop. There is too much at stake, and there's literally too much at stake in terms of regular energy, too. The fact is we have a huge and complex society that has to have energy, and this is a big source of it. So for both of those reasons, I don't think any amount of pushback is going to stop this.
Now, the Utica Shale is a game changer. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think everyone's a little bit skeptical at first. Well, how big is this going to get? And the answer is it's going to be huge. I mean, you're looking at just, leaseholders getting rich right now. Once the gas or oil starts being produced, then basically they will earn royalties. Mm-hmm. I mean, companies are coming in to build billions of dollars of pipelines and processing plants just to get the gas, to process the gas and get it to market. And the chemical industry is salivating at the thought of what is coming because basically it's just a cheap fuel for them. It's a cheap energy source with incredible economic potential for the entire state of Ohio.
Well, and you said each family in the state of Ohio last year saved money?
Well, last year the typical household in Northeast Ohio probably saved over $200 on their natural gas bills because of what's happening with the Utica and the Marcellus Shale.
But are these long-term jobs, or are these like the wildcatters in the gold rush era, where they come into a community and they take what they can and then they leave, and the community's decimated?
Well, the process on this basically is wells can be refracked. So even if production starts falling off at some point down the road, whether it's 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, I mean, you can refract wells to keep production up. I mean, the industry is also looking at shales that are deeper than the Utica Shale in Ohio. I mean, there are shales that are even deeper, which maybe 10 years ago the technology didn't exist to tap, but now it does. So I mean, after the Utica is done, there could be an Ottawa Shale, I'm told, even deeper in Ohio, which could be tapped as well.
And even more lucrative.
Potentially as lucrative,
Yeah, I mean, the thing you have to remember is geologically, Ohio is where we sit was a series of seabeds, seas that rose and fell for millions of years, and each of those laid down a layer of these things. And so nobody knows exactly what the potential of it is, but it is, with the technology, it's huge. And one of the things when you mention about jobs, the economic impact isn't just jobs. There are kind of two different things going on here. Yeah, there are jobs immediately in the oil field, and most of those are going to somebody from Oklahoma. But you also have just in the beginning of this, you have about estimates around $4 or $5 billion that got paid directly to farmers, household owners, communities, whatever, to landowners. That went directly into the economy, kind of like intravenous. Okay. And that then is why you have in places like Carroll County and so forth, you have this dramatic drop in unemployment. It's not just that people are working in the oil field. It's that roofers are working because Farmer Brown got $1 million, and he can now finally put a roof on his barn and his house, and he also can buy a new John Deere tractor, so they're hiring mechanics at the John Deere store.
What happens, though, in the state of Ohio? I mean, did not the governor want to charge these companies like a severance tax, and the legislature said, no, we don't need that?
Well, Ohio's been talking about a severance tax, and the governor's proposal basically would have imposed a severance tax on the industry, which the industry is fighting.
Sure.
The legislature is listening. But the governor's proposal went like a step further, and the severance tax would have helped fund a small income tax refund for Ohio residents. Okay. And I guess the question sort of is, does Ohio really need an income tax refund? Mm-hmm. Are there state problems we could solve with more state money?
Yeah.
Schools or other issues,
right.
Perhaps. So I mean, the governor's own party has kind of blocked his proposal on that one. But that proposal is more than just a severance tax. It's like a severance tax turning into an income tax refund, which is a different scenario.
Can the local communities generate some funds from this these companies coming into the communities?
Well, yeah. I mean, they for one thing, they can, if they agree to do it, and in many cases they're not, but they can lease, the municipality or the village or whatever can lease some of the land.
Oh, you just did a story about Youngstown.
Yeah, and Youngstown they haven't done this yet, but they're considering using this to raise a couple of $1 million to help with their master plan to tear down about half of Youngstown because, you had a city of 170,000 people, it's now 70,000. They got to get rid of the old housing. This is a way to pay for getting rid of it. There is, and I've forgotten who it is, there's a village to the south, I think in Tuscarawas County, that just sold leases. They got about $5,000 per, which was a lot per acre. Mm-hmm. I think it made them something like $1.2 million. Their normal budget for the year is like $400,000. So there are places where the scale of this really can have a dramatic impact. You mentioned the processing plants, things called fractionators, which are actually, that's the real word. They're spending, there are 3 of them they're building in the general area of Cadiz, They're spending about $600 million on these things, maybe more, in a county that only has 12,000 people. Its biggest town's only 3,000 people. You can imagine what that kind of money does to change these municipalities and communities.
Looking at the processing materials, I'm working on a story now, and the figure I'm coming up with is $7 billion will be invested in pipelines and processing plants and fractionators in eastern Ohio.
$7 billion?
$7 billion.
Okay.
Chesapeake Energy years ago said that they anticipate getting $20 billion from its land holdings in eastern Ohio alone from the natural gas and other materials. But I mean, it's hard to you're looking at Ohio as an economically hard-hit state.
Right.
And it's like, wrap your arms around $20 billion or $7 billion as far as additional investments and jobs and what it means,
We've got about a minute left. So I want to give each of you an opportunity to maybe summarize your thoughts about maybe the environmental impact versus the economic boom and how, in fact, Ohio is going to come through with this. Tim, why don't you start?
The best I can come up with is a memory of riding in an airplane once. I was in Texas going on a job as a consultant, and it was a stormy night, as it often is in the summer in Texas. Plane was it was one of those little flying sewer pipe planes. It was bouncing all over the sky. It scared me to death. But they had the curtain open into the pilot's cabin. And the pilots were sitting in there, and one of them had his foot up and eating dates, and the other one was, I guess, flying the plane, but they were just chatting away about something. And what finally became apparent to me was that for people who were experienced and knew what the plane was really doing, this bouncing around the sky was uncomfortable and upsetting, but irrelevant to the final outcome, that the plane was going to go and land in Austin or wherever I was going. This is similar.
Bob, you got 10 seconds.
My conclusion, I guess, I reach is this process is probably 99% plus safe. It will have a big economic impact, but I still have concerns over water and air issues.
Thank you both for joining us, and I'm sure we'll invite you back because this is not an issue that's going to go away anytime soon, obviously. And thank you for joining us for NewsNite. Good night.